Natasha, as anxieties and depression increases with all the uncertainty about our new normal, how do we find hope?
Yeah, so I hear a lot of hope when I hear us all trying to come up with strategies. Um, that right there says that that innate part of humans is potential that we all have. Um, Working in suicide prevention, we do postvention as well, so that's aftercare. The sense of hope is something that we absolutely have to connect to, because otherwise it can really take us down, as very obvious. Um, so I'd like to open up to think about crisis as opportunity. Um, and I think we've all been mentioning how creative humans are and what we've seen already so far in this sustained crisis. I think as we look towards continuing to try to attach to hope and hold on to hope, also, really importantly, we can't forget the normal feelings of grief that come with things that we've lost and have had to give up, potentially without our own choice being invited. So many of my fellow therapists have talked about being present in the moment, being accepting of ourselves. And this is very true for crisis and the move towards trying to hang on to hope. Grief, allow ourselves time to feel sad, time to cry, time to recognize that things that we wanted or needed or relationships that have changed. Potentially there's been deaths. Potentially there have been major illnesses, major changes that may never revert to where we were craving them to go back to. Allowing ourselves time. Each of us might need that at a different level. We might grieve in different ways, but recognize that along this trajectory, all of us at some level are experiencing grief. So that's important to honor. I've heard that word a lot, and I think that's so appropriate. Then, too, in doing that, really drawing on this idea of history, collective history, collective hope. So when we think of all of us being here today, looking for strategies to go forward, remind ourselves we wouldn't be here if our ancestors hadn't found within them that drive, that sense of hope, something that they've had to dig deep and go forward and keep going. All of us here are here because they did those things. And we can too. We have it within ourselves, hard as it is. Together and then individually, we have that capacity to pull something from ourselves that we never knew was there. So I would really encourage everyone to recognize family traditions or new traditions, things you might see in a neighbor or a friend, or maybe meeting some new people and seeing how they did it, or finding new ways if old traditions don't explain things very well, but looking to those, drawing from the past. So when we look at crisis strategies to get through moments, I suggest we go small, but then we look for hope, and I suggest we go big. Think of big. Think of how we're all here and we're all still trying, even through moments of grief, even through crisis, small moments, even through the anger, aggression, all of those things, we are still going. So everyone has it within them to pull that hope.
Great points. Thank you, Natasha. Maria, do you want to comment?
You know, I think it's really important. I think it was Eric Byrne who said basically all of our human emotions come down to 4 feelings, and all of them are being challenged in this epidemic: to find joy, to experience sadness, which is a part of grief. To experience anxiety, to be able to name it and understand it in our lives, and to experience anger, to understand. Sometimes when we work with folks that are dealing with depression, one of the things we see is depression can sometimes be anger turned inward. You didn't cause this. None of us did. And so you know, being able to name what's making you mad about what's going on is awfully important. And that's where journaling, yoga, meditation, all these activities can be a wonderful outlet. I also think that learning to tell a joke. I mean, you know, the other day I was going to get gas, and when I got to the thing, I'd stepped out of my car, so I didn't have my mask on. I was right there. So I go to put the gas in. Evidently, the credit card thing is not working. So I go to start walking towards the place, and I think, oh my God, no, I need my mask. I go back to my car to get my mask, put down my wallet, walk back in, don't have my wallet. And I burst out laughing. And it was like, all right, Maria, you can get this. You can do all those activities at once. Walk back in the car and thought, I'll get it another time, and laughed at it. And I think if we can begin to laugh in the face of this and see the humanness and the bloopers we're going to make along the way, I think it won't be so frightening. Just like hope is in believing in things you can't always see. Mm-hmm. We're dealing with a virus that we can't always see. We're only seeing the end results, the results of the test, the results of the illnesses coming back. So that's one of the things I suggest. And since we're in our homes more than we've ever imagined we'd ever would be, I'm personally recommending families sit down and re-look at your whole house and figure out how you would like to change it. Maybe the dining room becomes a living room. You know, maybe a bedroom becomes a study, you know, or a place where music or art gets done. You know, shifting things around, repurposing your house so that it fits the family and your lifestyle now as you're sitting here. When finally we opened up and Salvation Army opened up, I don't know about you guys, but obviously people were thinning out their houses because I never saw so many lines of cars. But they were doing something that was really positive. So that's my thought on that.
When I think about adversity, I oftentimes think about Lieutenant Dan in Forrest Gump. And as he's sitting in the crow's nest in the shrimp boat, you know, he reaches up to the sky and he's like, what else do you have for me now, Lord? And and he has that kind of that maniacal laugh.
Yes.
And, you know, the next morning, the boat is gone into waters that are filled with shrimp, and there is hope, even in times of adversity.
Yep.
And so when I oftentimes, think about that idea of hope and the position that we're currently in, I certainly think about that moment in that movie. You know, Maria, as you were talking about the idea of, you know, sitting around the house and figuring out things that might need to get done. At our house, I think my wife has been a little bit taken aback by my desire to change some things. And as I said, hey, I think I'm going to change that light fixture and where it's at in the wall, I think she looked at me like, what? You're going to do what? Because I'm not the most handy person around. But as I was talking about a little bit earlier, on YouTube, you can find a video for almost everything. And I figured this is a project that I think I can handle. And I didn't get electrocuted, which is good. Make sure you turn off your power supply. And but again, it's that idea of, you know, finding things that we can do and changing things around. It might be changing a room. It might be changing a light fixture. But the key here is there's a lot of satisfaction that comes from doing something that we didn't think that we could do. You know, whether it be that it is changing a light fixture, whether it be that we decide that what we want to do is that when COVID-19 ends, we'd like to go travel somewhere. And so we decide, I'm going to learn that language. You know, there is so many things that we can gain from our, from resources in our community, whether it be a book in the library, whether it be a resource on the internet. But I do think that what we find when it comes to hope is finding those small things. And I can tell you from a personal standpoint, it is very satisfying looking at the light fixture that is now centered on the wall.
I would say one other comment is we live in a unique area. You can go 5 minutes in your car and you're in farmland. And we have animals that entertain us if we just slow down long enough to see it. The skunks, the birds, the eagles. I mean, there's so much here that can also give us life and give us hope.
Jamie, will you add?
Sure, yeah. So as I'm listening to everyone speak, there's something to be said about being in the business of rewiring brains. So oftentimes people come into our offices and they're struggling with depression and anxiety, and it's really difficult to experience hope in those moments. Our brains tend to go into the negative way quicker than it goes to the positive. So if I ask someone, name 5 positive things about you, it will take them probably twice or 3 times as long versus I ask them a question of, think of 3 negative things about you. And so it's practicing this really shift of mindset of what's not happening versus what is happening and what can happen, as Brent's motto is. And so as we kind of honor our depression and the sadness and the grief that we are grieving over, as we sit in that, it only lasts for a temporary moment in time. And as we sit with that, on the other side of that is what is happening right now, is the things that are going great for us, is this coming together of our families, is this us going out into nature and noticing all the beautiful things around us that we never got time to do before. I see all the people on the bike paths and getting out and families and hearing the kids laughing outside and playing again, and the community getting together. People, we need people and we need others. And so I'm hearing all of this. Yes, it is very stressful and it's very sad, but there's also this piece of this togetherness and this oneness that we're all experiencing this all together as one, as this collective, and how we're helping each other out through it. So there's wonderful hope out there if we choose to see it.
Natasha,
Can I
did you have
just
something to say?
add to that? One final thing, and that would be a kind of a challenge to all of us to think about how we're going to tell future generations about how we survived this really difficult global pandemic. What did we do that could help them when they face a crisis? I know my son said to me just last night, the experience I had of these shoulder surgeries really taught me I have to dig deep when something comes up. And so that's the first time over all the history of him dealing with his shoulder that he's seen it in a positive way. It taught him something. And so I challenge all of us to really think about what we're going to tell others about what we learned and how we got through this, because we are getting through it.
That's great advice. Thank you.